and welcome to another Wolftime gaming video. Today we're going to be following on from painting Cassian yesterday, and we're going to paint K-2SO. Absolutely fantastic character in Rogue One. Got to be one of my favourite characters in the whole Star Wars series. He's played absolutely perfectly. He's so funny in the film, so dry. I really like him. I was really excited to get this guy on the tabletop. Before we get started on the painting though, as usual, let's get that kettle on. As always, the first step after building him, of course, is to give it a really good base coat. Now, I've used Games Workshop's Grey Sear to give this model a really good coating all over. It's really good base spray. I can't recommend it enough. I use it for all the Star Wars minis at the minute because it's really thin and allows you to use those contrast paints, which we'll come on to. So the first contrast paint I'm going to use is Contrast Black Templar. Now this is one I've used all the time for all the black now, even on the smaller details. I use it on the models for all these black pieces that I do. You can see it drops straight onto the model. Really falls into the recesses nicely, pulls away from all those raised areas, so there's not really any highlighting that you need to do if you don't want to. What you also find, what I found, especially with the sort of armor plating on K-2SO, was it pulled away from some of the flat areas that initially I was a little bit put off by. However, once it was all dry, it actually looks a little bit damaged, a little bit worn, which I really like, because you can just see those sort of lighter areas. And I know in the film you've actually got quite a bit of scratches and things on K-2SO, so it does sort of add a little bit more realism to it without having to go into all that detail, which means of course you can get him on the tabletop even quicker. Now, one of the downsides with using this contrast paint is it takes away all of those details if you could do a complete covering like I have today. So I've had to paint the eyes because they are white in the films, and I do like to say screen accurate as much as possible. So I grabbed a little bit of white scar paint. As you can see, just got a fine tip brush, little tiny bit of paint on the end, and just popped it into the eyes there. Good part about doing these sort of recessed areas with the white paint or something like that is you can just wipe off any excess if you have any. Now, the next paint I'm going to be using is a silver paint called Lead Belcher. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know Lead Belcher is my go-to for silver paint. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a really nice covering. It looks great, it's not too bright, and it goes really well on anything like this, any sort of models. Now you'll see I'm picking out all those little details around the model. So you've got all the joints underneath the arms. You've got this sort of middle area where his abs would be, his stomach sort of supposed area. All those areas are all painted with this silver paint. Just around the circles on the actual joints as well, rather than the whole joint itself. So you've got that black center still, trying to stay as close to the screen as possible. And also the weapon that Jin gives him in the film as well, that's an important piece. So the next paint I'm going to be using is Avalanche Sunset. It's a little bit yellow paint. It's just to do really fine detail around the edges of the silver in the arm joint, between the arm and the actual main body. You can see it's just a ring essentially. If you look at any of the images you can find on the internet, if you Google K-2SO, you'll see he's got these sort of yellow areas, and I really didn't want to miss this out because there's not a lot of colour on this model. It's very black and silver in comparison to other Star Wars models that I've painted, so I did want to have something on there. Now, one of the things that I always do whenever I use silver paint is stick a shade on it. Even though we've used contrast paints and things, I've avoided all those areas. Obviously, the black areas you don't need to put any shading on, but just those silver areas, I did put a little bit of Nuln Oil just to darken them down and add a little bit of shading back into it. Drop it into the recesses and make it look a little bit more realistic. And the mix of Nuln Oil with Lead Belcher is absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend you doing this enough, actually. This is something that I do all the time on all the models that I paint. Talking about something I do on all the models I paint, I also do the bases black initially, especially around the rim. They stay black all the time because I feel that it really does frame the model really, really nicely. Now I know these models, the Star Wars models, comes with coloured bases dependent on the faction, but I don't want that. I know which ones are mine, I know which army they go in, so I always do that black base. Now in this one I've left the actual top of the base around his feet white because there's no real need to go dark with it, because I'm popping some sand on there. All I've done is pop a little bit of PVA glue on, dipped it into my pot of fine sand that I've got a few little tiny rocks in and things, because I'm going with the Scarif theme essentially for K-2SO and as you've seen Cassian in the last video. On top of the actual sand as well, I wanted a little bit of greenery on there because it is a tropical planet. It's not completely sandy like Tatooine. So I've got a little bit of flock, and also I've got a little bit of static grass as well. But I'm not going to be using like the static applicator. I'm just getting a little bit on it with a piece of tweezers and just dropping it on there. Now I've gone for quite a light colour because it is a sandy sort of tropical area. It's not got necessarily a lot of water in this sandy area, so they've gone through a bit of a deady sort of a colour. But there you go, that is the model complete. Now you can see, just by using those very few colours, you can get an absolutely fantastic looking model. And you can see what I was talking about in the armour, where the black's pulled away from some of the areas on the flat areas, which gives it a little bit of a worn look. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. I've not done any highlighting to any of the black. As you can see, the contrast paint has worked perfectly and pulled away really, really nicely. And there he is with his friend Cassian. I really enjoy painting Cassian as well. If you haven't checked that video out, go and have a look. It's absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed getting these models painted up. But thanks for watching, guys. As usual, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to make sure you see any future content. We've got loads of Star Wars stuff coming your way very, very shortly. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.